Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It is great to see you this Monday morning, starting the week out right. Beautiful sunny day here. Very full weekend, full of rug hooking news and information as well. If you noticed, I kind of changed the theme of the day. I was going to do, and we might do it yet, but I was going to look at the new Promogown newsletter, but I think we'll do that another time. My head and my heart are somewhere else because this was the weekend I went to Wassaic, New York, to the Wassaic Project to, what could that have been? Oh, a gigantic container of wool. To see Mary Tooley Parker speak. So I want to talk about that today. Ruth, great to see you. Welcome back. Kaz, great to see you. Happy Monday from Wisconsin. I'm looking at my levels. It looks like we're a little bit stopped, but hopefully we're running things live and same as usual. So let's start here. I don't want to distract myself, right, as I often do. I went this weekend to see an exhibit of the work of Mary Tooley Parker. And I have seen her work before because if you remember, I think it was last year, maybe spring or summer, I went into Boston to the Les Sun Gallery and Les Sun, did a great video there with the gallery owner. And I was looking at the Mary Tooley Parker pieces. But this weekend there was an exhibit, sort of small. Maybe there was like 9 to 12 pieces. I'll show you all of them. And she was speaking because it was at the close of the exhibit. So she was giving a talk, and I wanted to be there for it to meet her, in person. I'm such a huge fan of hers, and she's got a lot of stuff on Instagram. But if you just do a Google search, like an internet search of Mary Tooley, Tooley Parker, you will go down the rabbit hole in a crazy way. Her work is so, she's been hooking for over 30 years. Her work is so varied. And that's one of the things I want to talk about on the show today because I took a lot of sort of insight from hearing her speak. She did like a PowerPoint presentation. She said it was the first one that she's ever done. And if you've done PowerPoint, if you've done anything on the computer, you know how tricky that is. I struggle so much. She did such a good job. And she gave a lot of insight, I think, without even realizing it, as to her process and particularly to her design method, like to how she arrives at a design. So I want to talk about that while we look at some of these pieces because it really was, it was a remarkable exhibit. And, keep an eye out. I don't know if you use Instagram. I guess I try to, but there's so many things to check, and I could go, sometimes I'm really good and I post stuff every day on Instagram, and then I could go like 2 or 3 months and forget that it exists. And, it's not how algorithms work, is it? You're supposed to kind of be pretty diligent. She's very good with Instagram, but I think even better is doing a search of hers because when I searched for her rugs this morning, because I wanted to talk about a couple that were in her presentation but not at the exhibit. Of course, the things at the exhibit are for sale. So it's like stuff is sold. She's moved on to different eras, but she's had quite a few marked sort of eras within her rug hooking recent past. She did a series of Gee's Bend women, the women who hooked Gee's Bend quilts. She did a series years ago based on memories, photographs and memories, and like photographs of New York in the 1970s, that kind of thing. And I mean, just really specific. And her most recent work is kind of God's eye views, blueprints of rooms from her aunt's house, or houses plural, in Wisconsin, remembered from childhood, summers away, in that beautiful sort of green, lakey part of the country where kids ran free until it was absolutely dark out or the mosquitoes were driving you crazy. That moment in time for her. But she works a lot on her memories, and she has had very distinct sort of epochs, eras in her career that are marked by subject matter. So when she's kind of in the groove of doing a specific thing, she's in it. Like it's like a dog with a bone. She is in it. And then she moves on to something else that's important for her to get out. One of the interesting things that she said in the talk, what one woman raised her hand and said, "Do you take commissions?" I could completely relate to this sentiment. And she was like, "Not really." She's like, "It takes," and you can relate to this sentiment. It takes so long to make these rugs. These are huge rugs. Um, and they're not intended for the floor. They're intended for the wall. She uses a lot of mixed materials. She said, "It takes so long to do these things. I'm not going to do something unless I feel it and I love it." Like, it's too much work, right? What could you ever charge that would be worth so much time? And she does a lot of her own dyeing, found materials, right? She does a sort of green, thrifty approach. It was absolutely amazing. So let me say good morning to you all, and then we'll look at some of these rugs that I saw in person on Saturday. Linda B., good to see you. Karen, good to see you. You're on the elliptical. You are so good. I have to exercise after this. I keep saying that, but it's such a bummer. It's so boring to just look at the screen and watch her lift weights and lift weights too. She's great. I just don't feel like it. All right. So, what was I going to say? Let's just do it. This is what I was going to say. It's so fun. I live in Connecticut, so I'm in a part of the country where there's a lot of stuff near me. I can easily go to any of the New England states above me or below me. And I can easily get quickly to New York or Pennsylvania. I can get quickly to Maryland and Delaware, where my Wilmington's buddies are and my friend Shannon is. There's so many places I can get to quickly and easily that it's like a no-brainer, right? So Wassaic, New York, for me was a no-brainer. It was like an hour and a half ride, which was not that much at all, and hardly any of it was on the highway, which is always nice, particularly on a nice day. Really windy roads. And when you drive through places and you think, I have never been here before. There's a lot. I mean, I've driven a lot, and I was a tour guide. I've been driven around a lot. But sometimes you see a place and you just think, God, that's like from a dream or a painting. It's like, I feel like I've been here before, but I haven't. And part of the ride took me to places that looked like not even this part of the country. Like there were some stretches that were like really rugged, kind of mountainy in the distance, and yeah, I was just like, God, where am I? It was only an hour and a half away, but man, it felt remote going to this little town. Highly recommend. I noticed right before I logged on that the Wassaic Project, and that's Wassaic, that's in Wassaic, New York, which is like a hamlet. They just posted something else, so I'm curious to see what it is, if they're putting up a new show, since Mary's show just ended. They're not necessarily rug hooking, but it is a lot of textile stuff. And it's just an extraordinary place with an extraordinary vibe. It's like, in a less grim way, it reminds me of like Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes, like the carnival, the wacky carnival. It's such an odd place that it doesn't have a dark sort of undertone, but it does have like a time traveling thing. Like you feel like you are time traveling when you're there. There's very little there. I'll show you. It was so different. It really was. Sharon, good to see you. I'm just putting your order together. I'm winding your yarns. Judy, great to see you. Yeah, it was really great. I loved seeing her in Boston as well. It was a few of the same pieces, but different pieces. But the difference was she was there, which was really nice. I'm so hoping that she'll do something with us. She came up to me and was like, "Oh, you're Deanna?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, I'm not going to bug you because it's like your big thing and you got to focus and everything else. But, I said, I'd love to talk to you because I love your work. I think a lot of us, you collectively and me, love her work. I'd love to do stuff with her. I'd love to interview her. I'd love to write a book on her. I'd love for her to be involved in Tigger. She's such an autonomous kind of an artist. You know what I mean? She is like a true artist. And before she was an artist, she was a dancer. God, I'm a dancer. Chorus line. I don't think she was that kind of a dancer. I think she was more of like an art, Martha Graham, modern art kind of dancer. She's such an interesting person. So I'll see. I'll write to her again. I want to give her a little time because I think speaking to a group and everything is not exactly her thing. I think being in the studio is her thing. And yeah, she's amazing. So, oops, I didn't want to start there. Sorry, hang on. Nope, wrong one. All right. We'll come back to this in a second. Sorry about that. I was adding some stuff at the last minute. According to time, Catherine, great to see you. Haley, great to see you. I know, it was so good. It was so good. It was so far. that I was hinting when I was with you, Haley, when we were in Warren. I was kind of hinting to you both that I was going, but I know it was ridiculously far for you. There's a lot of other stuff coming up, though, I have to say. I'm noticing there's a lot of stuff of interest coming up. So check this out. Honestly, okay, this was our thumbnail for today. So I am in the building looking at this rug, which is in my top 3 of my faves of hers. Her price points, I think, are very good for rugs this size. I don't have a lot of extra money myself. Everything I have goes to the business or to the children, and I don't have a lot of extra. Or to bills, you know. Her stuff, the price point is quite good. A piece like this would be maybe 5,000 or 6,000. Like, honestly, if you rug hook, right, you know that's not a lot for this, considering the materials and the time. This is an original piece of artwork. We're going to look at this a little bit closer up in a minute. I just want to show you when I drove into Wassaic, I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I thought it would be some weird, like, hip community. It was very hip, but it was like, honestly, it felt like a wrinkle in time. You pull off the highway onto this nothing road that brings you down into this tiny, tiny, tiny hamlet, very low, right on the water. In fact, the general store bridges the water. It's not on a bridge. It just happens to be structurally over this little river that runs through the town. This is the Wassaic Project. It's this beautiful 19th century farmhouse with this grain silo. Isn't that what it is? A grain elevator, right? A grain elevator. Crazy times. The building is like a skyscraper. It is an enormous building. It is such a thing to pull into the parking lot. You go into the house and that's where the exhibit was. But there's artists and stuff in this like 7-story grain silo, and there's open studio stuff. There was also, I wish I would have forced my children to come because they wanted to stay home and go to the pizza place. I should have forced them to come because there was like this every Saturday open art thing that this girl, I think her name was Emmy, was doing. There was a bunch of kids there marbleizing paper. Every week they do something different. It's like a drop-in thing. It's completely amazing. And all of these little artist studios in this wacky, creaky 7-story grain elevator. Like, what? You know, it was just so, it was so different. It was such an evocative building. I felt like I was in like a Wyeth painting, you know. Went inside. There was a beautiful gift store, lots of nice textile-y stuff. There's an emphasis on textiles, I think, because to get through anything, you walked through this tent. And, you know, it's got some structure to it, but it's draped with like sheets, vintage sheets, articles of clothing, handkerchiefs. There's a little Oriental type rug inside. I walked inside here. There's a bunch of chairs, bandanas. I mean, it just struck me as being such a cool space. I look really goofy here. I really thought it was cool. There was some lamplight in there. A few people could sit and talk. I just thought, not a good place to hook, right? No natural light, no good light, but just for sharing ideas. I mean, it just struck me. I've been looking at, I look at Facebook because I check our groups and stuff, but I've been noticing this trend also in books on like little altars and things like that. And I forget the other thing where people go into the woods to like meditate. There's like a new word for it, but it reminded me of that kind of sort of ideal that we're going for these days. Places that are like, that function as altars, but they're living spaces where you can think and be inspired and be with your thoughts and get good work done or talk with other people. And you feel like you're in this beautiful little cocoon, in this case of textile beauty. And it was just it was a small little thing. I guess it also reminded me of being a kid and making a tent, you know, with the couch cushions and a bunch of sheets. It was that kind of thing, but it did have a great structure to it. And you did feel like there was nobody else in the world. It really was such a cool thing. Michelle, good to see you. Oh, I was just looking at your Instagram this morning. I got to catch up with you. Jessica, great to see you. Good morning. Welcome. So that was a lot of fun. And it just got me thinking, you know, if you're going out of your mind, because I'm thinking, is there a space in my house where I could have something like this? Some little, you know, sheet draped, old quilt draped little textile she shed, right? That doesn't cost $16,000 from Home Depot. And just some place to be, you know. It was very cool. People were kind of meeting each other in there. It was a lot of fun. Let me see if there's other. No, I'm going to go straight into the exhibit now. And I'm going to start by saying the first 2 rugs I'm showing you were not in the exhibit. They are past rugs, and they're probably long sold long ago. But the reason I'm starting with them is because of her talk, right? She included these rugs and many others in her talk that were not part of the exhibit. And looking at the rugs in her talk gave me a much clearer understanding of, as I said earlier, her process, like her methods, from getting from point A to point B, from what's in her mind to what's on the canvas, so to speak, and it gave me a real insight into her design process as well. She wouldn't call it that. So let's start with this one. This one is called Times Square, and this was not in the exhibit, but this is one of her past projects. The reason I was so taken with this, and I have to say, I don't like this as much as I like the work that I saw at the Wassaic Project. And here's why. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it, right? I love it. But Mary Tooley Parker has so many different styles of working. With this image, I'm going to throw this to you. With this image, what do you think her source was to get this image on there? I'm going to hold on that answer, and I want you to throw out some guesses. What do you think the source was? In the past, she's done these memory series. Memory is very important to her in her life, telling, storytelling from memories, getting it all out there, and a lot of it sort of imagining, remembering the past. This is a little bit different, right? So this is part of an earlier series. She lived in New York, I think in the maybe 70s, 80s, and she was a dancer, and it looked different then. And in this image, she is remembering, she also had an image of, yes, exactly, Michelle, it's a photograph. So she sometimes, definitely not always, she sometimes works from photographs. How could you get there with this image without working from a photograph? You see what I mean? It looks like a photograph. Like you're looking across at this girl with her hair up in a bun. She almost looks like a dancer, kind of turned away. Her body's kind of turned away, looking at Times Square. She's with someone. He's kind of walking in the other direction, towing her along. Times Square looked different then, right? It had a Woolworths. I love Times Square. I love the ever-changing nature of Times Square. The thing about New York City that it's very hip. The thing about New York City that I like the least is that it changes too much. When I used to give tours of Manhattan, there were very precious few things that you could show people that were from like settlement and colonial days. They're all gone. New York is not a city that has treasured its history. It's a city that's vibrant and alive and always in the moment, right? Boston is a city that's about history, and a lot of European cities, even Providence, I would say, is a very historic city, not New York. So for myself, when I go to New York, I love to feel the energy. I love to bask in the neon lights. I love to see what's for sale, what's there, what's different, what's changed, what's closed, what's new, because it's all about energy and it's always about now, right? And that's why this piece is really interesting, because Mary has memories of New York, and it was a different place then. Yes, it was for its time luminous and glowing as it is now. It's over the top now, right? But this is what it looked like then, and she has captured this moment from a photograph. So when we see a composition like this, whether it's a Mary Tooley Parker or someone else's work, it sometimes, when you think about it, right, and it doesn't matter, it has no bearing on the success of the rug, but it is interesting when you look at stuff, because we aren't just makers, we're also designers, right? Even if you are doing commercial patterns, you're also a designer, right? You are making choices when you work on your rugs. It's interesting to be able to look at something and say, I bet that's a photograph. It's just how it strikes me, right? This is one of those. Oh, Janice, great to see you in Pepperell. And Michelle says, I have a photo of my baby and I, and this is inspiring me. Photographs are so great to work from because our memory museums only go so far, right? At a certain point, if you're working from memory, you have maybe a photograph, assuming we're working from photographs, let's stick with that. If you're working from a photograph, you have to make decisions about what to keep in it and what to take out, right? Because in the distance, is the bathroom door open and can you see the toilet bowl or the toilet brush, right? You probably don't want that in it. Is there someone in it who's cut off and you can't remember who they are? Maybe you don't want that person in it, right? So even when you're working from a photograph, sometimes you have to adjust stuff. Sometimes there's a foil, metallic Christmas tree up, and you don't want a Christmas scene, so you remove that or whatever. You make decisions about what to keep and what to include. And sometimes you even take it a step further and add a person like a composite from another photograph who wasn't there but belonged there, maybe the person who took the photograph. So these are all things to consider. This is part of the art, right? Just deciding what the subject will be. If you have an amazing photograph from the 1970s of Times Square and it looks like that, you can work straight from that photograph, right? You have it, it's yours, you know everything. All of the information that you want to relay is present in that photograph. When it's not, you think about making some kind of a composite, right? I'm going to get some of these little balsam blocks that my sister-in-law made. My hands are so dry still. Anyway, the reason I like showing that particular piece is because the pieces that you're going to see later in this episode are very different, right? Because her work now is more the God's eye view, looking down at remembered rooms that almost look like blueprints, right? Very, very folk art perspective, everything out of perspective, very skewered viewpoint, very folky. That is the polar opposite of a piece like this that is very much in her style. But perspective-wise, for me, it surprised me, right? Because I assumed that she had always worked in that God's eye view style. Now, somebody asked the question, where was I going with this? It'll come back. Somebody asked a question about perspective. Yeah, that was it. Somebody said, what were you working from in this? And she said a photograph. And then she told the story about when she was dancing. She had other rugs that she included in the presentation. One of them was like outside one of these bars, like, I don't know. I think it was actually a motorcycle, something angels, something. Why can't I think of it? There's something angels, right? What's wrong with me? Their bar where there's always music, late night, lots of noise, people outside. So there was one of those like street scenes from New York in the 1970s, right? And so interesting, a huge chapter of her life. So when someone said, what were you working from? And she said photographs and memories of that time, photographs as references. That was important for me because that was different than what I knew about her so far based on her work that I'd seen. The stuff that was at the Laysun Gallery was not photograph sourced. So it was all God's eye view stuff, right? It was more of a themed exhibit. So that was interesting. And Mary said, I'm not a good artist. And I thought, are you serious? She said, I can't draw anything. And that's why I need to work from photographs. Or she embraces the fact that she thinks she's not a great artist in terms of like, sketching a composition. That is one of the reasons that her current pieces look the way they do with the God's eye view, because the perspective is off. Now, for me, and we will get to these in just a second, her current work for me is the height of sophistication as far in the folk art world. It is the height. I can't think of anything better. So it's an opinion thing, isn't it? And it's how it makes you feel. Oh, Lisa, great to see you. Hell's Angels. Yes, of course. Yep, of course. So she has lots of those. You'll see those if you go down the rabbit hole and look at some of her work. You'll see those. So she showed us some perspective pieces like this one that were based on photographs that she'd taken. She had another series that you will love of, as I said earlier, the Gee's Bend women, right? Some contemporary and some historical figures from the 19th century who are the original Gee's Bend women. I'm sorry, I didn't have the name for this piece. It was in the presentation, but you will find this on the internet. She has a bunch of pieces. They are basically portraits of the Gee's Bend women, done in the style of Klimt. So you see where she's going with this, and it is fascinating. We have got in a lot of her G's Bend portraits, in the background, there are hanging the quilts that particular woman made. So many of the G's Bend pieces, if there are quilts in the background, likely they are made by the woman who is being pictured in the portrait. In this case, she did have some Klimt ones, right? And one of the things she said that I thought was amazing was she said these women were working at the same time as Klimt. They were doing incredible original work. Why was Klimt so famous and they were not, right? This eternally, right? Coming after International Women's Day, this is the eternal question. I mean, Klimt often worked in textiles, with textiles, portrayed textiles. Of course, he's in Austria. G's Bend is Alabama, USA. But it's a point worth making, isn't it? Women's history and women artists routinely have been swept under the carpet through the years because they, until the 20th century and in the 20th century, have fought for their place at exhibitions, for fair amounts of money in return for the work that they do. And they have fought for a legacy, right? In fact, the next design like I'm going to be doing, I'm going to put this up this afternoon, is an artist called Sonia Delaney, sorry. And her husband was also quite famous, but Sonia is the one I want to focus on. Absolutely amazing sort of fashion type pattern design, very abstract. Yeah, she was very much a fashion fixture, but she did a lot of abstract work along the lines of Kandinsky, or we know Hilna af Klint. Yeah, women have gotten lost. They have fallen through the cracks like crazy. So this series, and she showed a few of these G's Bend women, were remarkable. And in many of her portraits, so portraits is another area of work for her, right? Portraits, memories, portraits. She does a lot with color substitution in the skin tone, and that is really interesting with pieces like this because, of course, we're talking about a dark skin tone. Let me just, sorry, I'm taking you for a little bit of a ride. Let me just bring this up a little bit more. You can see she's working in tonal values. Oh, I'm sorry. She's not working in realism. She's working in tonal values. If it's the correct tonal value, if it's purple, if it's pink, some of them are extreme. This one's a little bit muted, but it is part of the charm. And I just love the idea of using some of Klimt's patterns, fruits, flowers, scrolls, vines, and then in the top right-hand corner, really beautiful trees, right? These are very recognizable from many of his paintings. This is a bit of a composite, right? But would you ever think about, because I would not have, doing this kind of a portrait, a solo portrait, there she is, and use for the background inspiration from a well-known artist who everyone would look at this and say, gosh, that reminds me of Klimt. There's a reason for that. Would you ever think of grounding the person like in the garden of Klimt? I mean, it's so remarkable, just the fusion of these worlds, the bringing together of these worlds. I just thought this was amazing. Now, I'm moving more toward her work now. This is in the gallery. This was in the Wassaic Project gallery. These are the pieces I love the most. This is not a God's eye view. This is across the lawn view. But it has that flat quality of folk art. This is my favorite part of folk art. It really is. This is an interesting sort of outdoor living space, right? There's a hutch out. It's outside. There's a hutch with all the various bits and pieces. There's a couch with a cat napping. There's a lamp outside plugged into nothing. You can see there's a rug hanging on the wall. So it's almost like the contents of a room have been transposed to the outdoors. And it's such an interesting story. It feels like dusk. There's a very controlled color palette on this. Lots of greens and blues and blacks, right? So black is functioning as a neutral and all the whites and ivories are functioning as neutrals. So it is really a duochromatic piece. Even the throw over the couch or the chair is like a seafoam green. So still working within the same family. One of the things that she said that I thought was important was somebody asked her about directional hooking, and it might have been my husband actually, and she said she doesn't like to hook straight lines. She hooks them sometimes for speed, right, and just to get some sort of traction going. But she gets bored when she hooks straight lines. So even if she could do some kind of directional fill in any part of the background, she usually chooses not to because she finds curving, unexpected twists in her lines to be more interesting to hook, right? She also just had carpal tunnel surgery. So be thoughtful of that too. Be thoughtful about your hands when you're working on pieces this size for 30 something years, right? It'll catch up to you. So just be careful and think about that too. It is harder to do. It is technically harder. It's physically a little bit harder on your wrist to do diagonals. But I get what she's saying. It creates so much movement, energy. There's a sketchbook quality to this piece. I just find this extraordinary. I just love looking at the stuff. I love looking beyond to those blue trees. It's almost like the cover of an old jazz album, you know. I love seeing other people's stuff. I just love seeing other people's belongings, you know. I love seeing what they choose, how they display their stuff. I love seeing messy houses and all this stuff that's out, you know. House Beautiful, not so much. But, you know, Mary gives us a lot of views. This one's very different. I'm going to hold on that for a second. Mary gives us lots of views of interiors, right? Her aunt's house in Wisconsin. And it's just so interesting and relatable to see the way that people put stuff away or don't put stuff away. I mean, man, there's a reason why you only see this much of this room. It's just relating to people and how they live and what they buy and what they keep and what they use from day to day is life, right? It's life. It's not what you can afford, right? It's not what you bought as the highest bidder at an auction. It's how we live. I think that connects us and makes us the same. And it's interesting to see it, and it feels good to know it. And she, this is what she does. For me, this is my favorite kind of pocket of her work. The one I'm about to show you here is another memory, right? So this is, this one was at the display. This is of a fire. She said this was an old hotel, like a bed and breakfast, kind of old inn sort of thing, probably an old inn. I think she set up in Maine that burnt down years ago when she was a kid. She's in her 70s. So when she was a kid. And she said a lot of people who see this piece, oh, thank you. A lot of people who see this piece have commented that it has a comical quality. And she said, okay, this is a memory, right? This is not a photograph. She's one of the little kids that are there. And she said, this inn burnt down at like 4 a.m. Everybody had to come out. People are standing out there on the lawn with their underpants on. I think she said 5 or 6 people died. It was a tragedy, and for a small child, it was a horrible, scary memory. Imagine being this age. You know, if there's one thing that children have to feel, it's safe. Something like this happens. My God, it's like. I don't know. I don't know how you go on and make your kids, I mean, people go through it and worse. And how you tell your kids that life is okay and that they're okay and we're going to take another vacation and the place is probably not going to burn down around our ears, although it might, right? That's life. So this is one of her memories that is a bad memory, but as with all art, she's an artist and she wants to get these memories out there. She remembers people running in, running out, trying to grab stuff. Yeah, really scary memory, but very cathartic to work through this. This is another one that was in the show. And I was at this point kind of running to get back seated so I could watch her speak. And after she spoke, everyone was in the show. I got there early before. Would have liked to have gotten there even earlier, but while I was driving on those back roads at my usual speed of like 5 miles an hour under the speed limit, because I am a slow driver. I was born to be a slow driver. I never speed, right? And if you're thinking the day of my book thing and for Halloween, how they pulled me over for speeding right outside the inn where we had the book thing, yeah, that was because the sign changed, the speed limit changed, and my GPS, it had just changed. My GPS didn't even know that it changed yet. She pulled me over and gave me a warning. Well, this weekend, I had a cop behind me for like, I don't know, 20 minutes on this country road. There was no one in sight. I was enjoying the view, and then our lights go on. And you know what she was doing was scanning my license plate. Apparently, my registration just ran out. So I need to figure out how to get that done. I was just at the DMV. We just paid the dang tax on the car. I've got nothing in the mail. You know what I mean? It's like, talk about tainting the day, right? Really set me right off. Otherwise, I would have been even earlier because she took forever. She's sitting in her car, like, I shouldn't say it, maybe doing her nails, like clipping her toenails. I mean, taking forever. And I'm thinking, I would like to get to this exhibit right before the cock crows midnight here. Whatever. So frustrating. I didn't get a ticket, but I will get another registration. I would like to be warned about these things. She's like, "Oh, you have to kind of go on the internet every now and then to the DMV to see if it's like about to expire." I'm like, "Really? Is that what people do? Do people know to just go on the internet just to check stuff like this? Because I would like a list of things to check that I could be pulled over for. Like, I would like to have a list, or I would like to have something come in the mail to let me know. Yeah, maybe I'm lazy, but frustrating. So I got there a little later than I would have wanted to. And afterward, I went in and it was busy again. I have to say, I love this piece, but it was one of the pieces I was less interested in. I know that this piece is done from a photograph. Could it be done any better? No, it could not be done any better. Obviously, this is from an old photograph. This is from the same era of her doing photographs as Times Square. Judy says the characters in the foreground, that's of the, yep. Let's look at that again. That's a great remark. Let's come back over here. The characters in the foreground look so tiny and insignificant, which is exactly how she must have felt seeing the tragedy as a child. Absolutely. That's such a good point. They look like little ants, and there go their belongings, I hope the bag and the wallet's not in there with the driver's license. Probably was, but what a horrible moment. Can you imagine in the middle of the night and the smell of it, how awful, and how long it must have taken for this to burn down. Awful, absolutely awful. But these memories that are coming out of photographs, so important to record, such beautiful memories, and the hooking is just impeccable. So much texture. The colors that Mary chooses make so much sense to me. But this would be an old photograph, right? So I wouldn't expect this to be a color photograph. And I do know because she did a cover of like a New York Dolls album, and it's a black and white cover, and she colored it. So she does like to reimagine what the colors might be with older photographs, and that's one of the things that's going on here. Really interesting, the crowding in, the excitement of the camera, right? Not everybody has a camera. You're in a picture. It's exciting. Crowd in. Everybody get in the picture, right? You remember these moments. Absolutely beautiful. But it was different than ones like this, which are the ones that my heart is really in ones like this. Now, the color, I tried to adapt the color, but because it was dark in there, right? Remember, this is a grain elevator. It was a little bit dark, and it had a barny feel of a barn. Not like Barney the dinosaur. It's huge. I tried to adjust the color, but the floor is super pink with mustard yellow running through it, so I was not getting a great photo. We saw this one together when I went to the Boston Gallery, the Laysan Gallery, and I think I got a better image of it because I recorded a video that day. Go back and watch that video if you're enjoying today. Because it really was great. I went through with the gallery owner and we looked at a lot of pieces, including this one. This is what I refer to as the God's eye view, looking down at the room. Is it a straight up looking down perspective? No, it's a little bit tipped. Some things are more tipped than others. It gives it a wobbly feel, like almost like a dollhouse feel. And that's what I love about this series. That's what I love about her work. This sneaky peek into I think kitchen area. I think I see a little sink over on the right and a little burner. Steps down to something else like a desk. Maybe that's where you write the checks and pay the bills. There's a fridge. Very funny carpet for a kitchen, but by all accounts, the aunts were extraordinary people. She said she had 3 aunts, and when all of their husbands died, they bought a house together and lived in it. And that's the house that she refers to. And she said it was such, in Wisconsin, it was such a happy place. The aunts were so happy. They were happy to have you. They were happy to entertain, to feed you. She has great memories from this time. I'm showing you a close-up of some of these details because it makes the point about the not directional hooking. And it makes the point about the different kinds of materials that she uses. She does like to dye stuff. She prefers chemical dye because it's quicker, reliable. She dyes huge amounts, as you can imagine. Her favorite color at this moment is weld. And this is also a conversation that I had in the Boston video. Catherine says, God's eye view reminds me of a high school assignment to map out your room interior and make a legend to go with it. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. What a fun project for us all to do. Maybe we should take a day and do something like that together. Maybe we should take an episode and do something like that together. That's a great idea. I mean, I've done that in my diary just to try to remember all the houses that we've lived, but as an exercise, that would make, I mean, it does make a great rug hooking composition, doesn't it? Almost like the clue board, looking down at the clue board, you know, from room to room. That's a great idea. You just planted a good seed. I like that seed. Let's talk about that some more. This is another beauty. I think this was also in Boston. I'm not sure. I think it was because I think it's the same series. All these great carpets and the crazy colored walls, the furniture. Yeah, this one was in Boston. I remember the story of the 2 beds, and you see the girl who's getting into bed hits her head and says, "Ow." I can't imagine the fun, you know, of being in the woods by a lake, summertime, you know, in those days when you were a kid and summer seemed to stretch out forever, like for eternity. Even when you were in the middle, you still felt like you had so much further to go. You know, you were just free. I just love them. I love seeing the textures and the little details. And remember, she does not feel like she's a good artist. She draws things as she goes. She makes a sketch. Her process is exactly the same as mine, except for the transfer method. She makes a sketch. She makes it the size she wants. So she prints all the pieces out on the computer, cuts the edges, cuts the margins, tapes them together. I do exactly the same thing. And then she will put it up on a window or a light box and transfer it. I use fiber tape at that point, but she uses natural light. Of course, she's transferring it once. I'm transferring it however many times the person buys the image. So I need to have a copy so that I don't have to do the transfer as an original every time. Otherwise, I would have to charge 10 times more for everything I sell. Ruth, how big is this? Well, these are, remember the one at the beginning that I was in. Some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger, but I would say on average, her pieces are about, I would say 50 something inches tall, something like that. 50, 60, maybe some are a little bit bigger. Some are maybe only 40 at their widest point or tallest point. They're big. They're really big. If you watch the video at the Laysan Gallery, you'll see because I'm standing next to them. Some of her portraits are very small, so it really varies. These are all details of that one piece, right, with the pink floor. Oh, this is the kitchen. I'm sorry, this is back to the kitchen with the pink floor. So you can see in the kitchen, the aunts had a sewing machine that was out, the view out the window, and a little bit of fabric. They were sewing things there. Yeah, they're huge. They're really huge. And she likes to hook in a size 8. She's got like a Rigby cutter or a Townsend cutter, the double blade. So it's a very fast one. It's one of those really nice cutters. It's a lot of detail because it's so big. Out the window here, there's like a garden, right? The aunt's garden out there. But one of the girls who was, this is my all-time favorite. I would love to buy, I'm desperate to buy this piece. One of the girls who was there said, she raised her hand. She said, I don't have a question. I just have to say, I own one of your pieces. And they knew each other. And she said, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Every time I walk by it, I see something different, you know. And she's like, every time. There's so much in it. She said, I love living with this piece. Yeah, I get that. I just love this one. A view out the kitchen sink, right? Into, you're getting stuff done. There's a little, like a battery powered radio on the windowsill. The paper towels are just on like a dowel, like a little rod. The dish rag is just pinned up there on a tack. Little vintage set of canisters. Pretty drying rack with I know that set. What's that called? That dish set. It's called God, I know it. I see it all the time in antique stores. It's not one of my favorites. I'll show you a close-up of it. It's going to come to me, dang it, at 3:15. But it's just, it's, for me, this is about the interior versus the exterior, the pretty textured sort of maybe Formica top. Dated, right? It's dated. The interior world versus the exterior world. The interior world, things are happening, things are functioning. It's a little bit messy, right? Just as I like it. It's a little bit messy. You're not like being precious over where you put stuff and how you keep stuff, because part of your life is on the inside and part of your life, if you live here, is on the outside. And this house was on a pond, and I can only imagine that looking out the window at the little birdhouse while you were doing the dishes and looking out at the pond was super, super pleasant and pleasing. But then getting outside and being in that environment was probably what you were rushing for. I love the stylized shape of the trees. It has like almost like a children's book quality to the shapes. They're so colorful and a little bit unreal. But this, for me, this is the height of folk art. Like, this is it. This is it. I can't say how much I love this piece. I really want this piece. I wonder how much that piece was. I'm wondering if it was, I mean, I don't have the money, so I'm not even gonna, for this moment, I'm not even gonna look. Gregorian. No, it begins with a C, this dish set. Canterbury, no. Oh, dang it. It has a funny name. But these are some of the details, just the shapes, and the things that you see on the windowsill, like a wrench and maybe a tube of maybe toothpaste, hand cream. It's just so cool being able to look at their stuff. Sorry, this is a little bit redundant, but lifting the view a little bit. Not necessarily straight lines, right? Why do we need straight lines? You could be like Friedensreich Hunterwasser and not have any straight lines. And the patterning, right? She does a lot of surface. She does a lot of field fills with patterning, and some of it is just changing the color or running out of color and adding something different. Some of it's actually patterning, like the little rag. This is another one that we might have seen in Boston. This is a kind of a different one, a view down, and you kind of get, it's like a 2-for-1 special. You're looking down into a sitting room, but then in the distance you see a second room. Another sort of beautiful floor plan of, you get a sense of how crowded it was, right? And even where the door goes outside, where the windows are, right down into this small, cozy little room where obviously people would sit and put things down on the table and talk or work or quilt. It gives you such, there aren't people in most of these, but it does give you such a sense of someone was just in the room and they just left, and that there's their stuff. They'll be back in a minute and pick it up where they left off, whether it's a book or a quilt square or whatever. But yeah, all the details, it's all in the details. And I just love the idea that no detail is too small, right? Like, that's it. That's the secret of life. No detail is too small. This is a story about when the aunts would have family over, and over on top, that's Mary and her sister doing what was that rhyme with the hand? Something Mary Mac or something like that. They would have these big gatherings of family and put so much food on the table, but like the pièce de résistance was always that 7-layer salad. And she said, it seemed like it was a Wisconsin thing. I know I've heard of 7-layer salads, but I have to agree, at least in our family, I never saw one before. It's like it's in this giant bowl, and it's all these layers of salad and beets and carrots and whatever, and there's like a layer of mayonnaise. And she said it sounds like the grossest thing, but you scoop down and you get a little bit of everything, and it's like this like salad in the sense of like a like a savory salad, not like a dinner salad with like iceberg lettuce, the 1950s style salad where it's a bunch of slop on your plate, and the thing that's holding it together is like mayonnaise, right? Or some kind of dressing like Heinz dressing, right? Moment in time, absolutely a moment in time. So this would have been, I'm not sure what era this would have been. I would say maybe 60s, maybe. I can't do the math that quickly, but I think she said she's like in her middle. No, she's not in her 70s. She's in her late 60s. Yeah, she's in her late 60s. I think she said like not late, like 67. I think. Who cares? The only thing that it helps with is giving a date to what we're looking at, because this looks like a 70s image, but she's young, and I think so maybe she was in New York City more like the 80s. That might be the case. Maybe you're better at math than I am. In any case, this was when she was a child, and it was a different time. I mean, this looks like when I was a child, too. I mean, just the stuff that people are wearing reminds me of being that age. Yeah, I think she's probably maybe 10 or 15 years older than me, so maybe, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm thinking of our family photographs, and there were a lot of guys wearing that shirt. That's what I know for sure. And we ate this kind of food, minus the 7-layer salad. But yeah, if you went for a picnic and we were on a lake or whatever, and then we had a few picnic tables and people put down those red and white checker plastic tablecloths, this is the food that you would see on that table. Absolutely is. Along with the grill and the hamburgers and hot dogs. And Kaz, being from Wisconsin, says the 7-layer salad is very popular at picnics and potlucks. Here's Mary giving her talk, and in this you can't see the slide because of the color change, but it was one of the G's Band women. It might have been, I think it might be the one I showed you. Yeah, it is the with the Klimt background. She is just gorgeous. Like she looks like a little pixie. She's got such an unusual face. She looks very, very artistic, very intellectual. She doesn't have one of those faces that's like all crazy emotion. Like she seems so I don't know, sophisticated, artsy, but she's very down to earth. I liked her very much right out of the gate. I liked her very much. I love the way she talked. I loved how gentle her demeanor was. She said, she knew that there were some rug hookers in the crowd, and she said, if I say something wrong, just tell me. And I almost wish that she hadn't said that, because it's like, what could she say that's wrong? All she can say is what she does and what her process is. It's not wrong. If we transfer something differently, it doesn't make her way wrong. And if we create compositions that look different or are from a different perspective, hers is not wrong, right? She's making these things, and they're extraordinary. So there's nothing she's doing that's wrong. We all feel differently about supplies and techniques and how we work. That's all. And your way is not better than mine, and vice versa. So, but she's very soft spoken, but clear. She's an original. She's a very original person. I just wanted to show you. I'm going to show you some more pictures, but I just wanted to show you. This is a side of the tent. I noticed afterward, walking around the tent, that there were a bunch of these kinds of portraits that look like they're done in spray paint that are included in this textile tent. And I really enjoyed, there was so much to see. In the gift shop, I noticed this piece. It's a hooked piece. It was a different artist. And I wondered if it was done like on a piece of cardboard or on a hand. It's obviously like, it would be great for like a restaurant or somewhere, like you want to show somewhere where the bathrooms are, or the exhibit continues this way or whatever, and you want a big long hooked hand, right? You want it. I mean, it's just cool. This place and seeing this kind of art really brought my brain to the conversation about the different kinds of rug hooking. And Mary and I talked about this. We talked about the different kinds of rug hooking, because there are rug hooking teachers. Like, I was born to be a teacher, right? I want to do my stuff my way. I hope that you'll buy some of it so I can keep going. But I live to teach and to share, and that's my angle. That's where I have to be. But then there are rug hookers who are hobbyists, right? And they just do it because they love it. Maybe they do original work or not. You tell your own stories, but you do it for you. you love textile art, whatever, maybe it's therapy. And then there's another group of hookers who are gallery artists, and they choose hooking as their medium. And it's a different game, right? Because they want to sell stuff. It is a game, right? Getting into a gallery is a game. Getting, a solo show is a game. It's all a game. Because the gallery always wants something that's a good fit. We're really talking about personalities when we talk about the gallery world. It's not my favorite world, I have to say. It's just like the theater world, the actual theater world. Not going to see a beautiful play that changes your life and you end up buying the soundtrack and humming that tune for the rest of your life. The real theater world is a lot different, and it's much, in my opinion, uglier than the beautiful work that is produced that you watch for 2.5 hours and then you get on with your beautiful life. And the gallery world can be a lot like that too. And in the writing world, right, the book publishing world, like all of these worlds where your happiness, your success, your advancing in your career are completely, hinging on the whims and the personalities of people who have more power. I hate those situations. I hate them. I'm not in those situations, right? I totally struck out on my own with the publishing and everything. I don't like being in those situations, and I don't like thinking of other people being in those situations, and that's why I always kind of cringe with like juried stuff and whatever, because it breaks my heart when people write and say, "Well, I put this in as a submission, it was declined," and I think just the word declined gives me stomach cramps, because it's often something so beautiful and special. Anyway, the point is that this whole gallery world, if you're a rug hooking gallery artist, that's a tough world, right? And to keep going, to keep being invited places to show more of your work, you need to sell it, not just for the bills, but for the exposure. You need to sell it. Otherwise, galleries are not going to pick you up, right? So that's something to think about. So whether or not you can afford to buy hooked gallery art, if there's something that comes up near you, try to get there, because it was like $10 to go into this exhibit. The gallery will take the $10, right? The more bodies who go in there and spend the $10, they're happy to take that too, right? Not everyone is going to buy anything. Not everybody has that kind of pocket change, but it's good to show up because it sends the message to the gallery owners, right, and the people running the space, that there's a lot of people who are interested in this kind of art. And the more people who show up for rug hooking and textile art exhibits, the more of those exhibits we're going to see. Simple as that, right? That's how it works. I always prefer not to know how the sausage is made. I always, yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. Absolutely. So this, I went down that crazy rabbit hole because this reminded me of that world. Being at the Wassaic Project and seeing the different kinds of textile stuff that was available in the gift shop. It was a beautiful gift shop. Talk about a great place to actually find gifts, like for other people too. This was the only hooked piece that was there. There were a lot of felted pieces, but it did make me think. It did make me think. Just how cool, right? How cool to do a piece like this. Like we're very, I think, rug oriented in the rug hooking making and teaching world, but in the gallery world, they're way more at peace with wacky stuff that has a different shape or doesn't really have an obvious story. Why not? It's all about the medium, and this is a cool thing. I'd love to have this like pointing toward the door in our house. Just want to show you a couple of pictures of the town because it was such an unusual town. And if you're anywhere near here, of course the exhibit's closed, but there's more beautiful stuff at the Wassaic Project. Right across the street from the Wassaic Project and the big grain elevator and the old farmhouse was this. And I took a picture of it, and the sun happened to be coming down over the hill. Boredom is a luxury. And I thought, dang it, if that ain't the truth. Boredom is a luxury. Think about, and it was perfect coming out of this exhibit, think about all the people who wish that they could have a hobby or the time to do something they would love to try, something meditative, something therapeutic, something to express themselves, something that is pretty. And so many people just do not have the time. It is a luxury to have the spare time. And in my mind, boredom is like a crime, right? I don't want to hear it from my kids that they are bored. They know not to say that to me. Because there are so many people who don't have one moment to themselves in their lives. right next to Boredom is a Luxury, right? And this is the same field as this beautiful little church with a slate roof. I mean, there's quite a few buildings that I drove by in this immediate area that had these decorative slate roofs, right? I mean, you never see, this is like a regional thing in other regions too, but I mean, in Connecticut, there's like two of these roofs that I can name. There were like 3 or 4 within a mile of this Wassaic project. It was just interesting to see the small scale architecture, right? This would have reflected the congregation at that time. Tiny, really tiny. Um, and again, this is the town where the little village, the country store, is over the river. It just happens to be built over the river, and it was the tiniest little country store. I mean, you walk in, and it was just my husband and I who were in there, and the proprietor, a lovely woman behind the counter. It was very hard to just walk through the door and shut the door behind you, and yet, ironically and humorously enough. Um, there was a huge table where 2 life-size teddy bears were playing chess. And I thought, is this a good use of space? I mean, it was very funny. It was a very fun place. Half of the store was bookshelves, and I picked out some books only to find that they are not for sale. It is used as a library since there isn't a library in the village. So they're not for sale. And the other half of the store was VHS tapes that I think you can, I'm not talking about like discs. I'm actually talking about VHS tapes that you can borrow, right? And beautiful painting here and a sort of decoy duck, a moment in time, right? There's a scale over there, moment in time. If you look at the stuff in this picture, it was just hilarious. What the woman said was, this is like we're pretty much a health food store, and it was basically one display with like crackers. So we got quite a few crackers, and it was quite funny. I got some delicious brown rice crackers. It was quite funny because I said, I couldn't. It was a very small store, and I said we better buy something, and so I said just get some crackers. Let's get some crackers. And we got into the car, and I said, it's the kind of store where the crackers would be like expired, and they were. But I ate them. And I feel fine. It was just a moment in time, right? I would go back and buy more crackers next year. I mean, do crackers really expire? I guess I'll find out later today if I am continuing my new diet regime of being very sick. So this is another corner of the store, and this is a photograph of the fire, but I thought the hooked rug was lovely, and I thought you would want to see it. Ruth says, my kids never say they're bored. I always gave them jobs to do when they're bored. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. It's the wrong thing to say. You get yourself in trouble. I know. You get yourself in trouble when you say you're bored, because I'm like, well, guess what? Exactly. Yeah, you gotta keep quiet when you're a kid and you're bored. This little corner of the shop did bring me to the conclusion that I need a yellow chair in my life. I mean, look how good it goes with a nice antique rug. It's just such a sweet vignette. Let me see what else I had for you. Oh, so hey, so this is what I was thinking. If you do end up that way and you're curious about the Wassaic Project and seeing this big grain elevator in this lovely hamlet called Wassaic, New York, so many, I mean, just driving around there, it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. It is like time traveling, honestly. There's like little diners all over the place. I stopped at another little store that was like the New England Gallery or something. It was mostly new stuff. But it was in an old house, like an old farmhouse with a big porch. And half of the store was like the kind of necklaces I wear. This isn't one of them. This is like an amber necklace or whatever. But I bought a beautiful necklace I wore to church yesterday. One of those really glitzy ones that I like to wear on the show because they're so colorful. $8 for like, there were thousands of necklaces. It was like new old stock. It was amazing. If you like pretty things, fancy things, but you don't want to spend like $30 every time you buy a necklace, it was great for that. There were lots of little places to stop, and I would suggest if you do this as a day trip, you will be charmed. You will be enchanted by this part of the country. But do be sure to also go to Millerton, New York, which is another beautiful main street. Lots to do there. Old. Oh, another moment in time, a lot bigger than Wassaic. And it's like 10, 15 minutes away. I'm in love with Millerton, New York. Beautiful sloped main street that curves down. You won't believe the buildings on the main street there. They look like dinosaurs. I mean, they're crazy looking buildings. And there's a big antique store where there are always rugs. This is just a view of it. It's right on the main street. You can't miss it. It's a multi-dealer, 2-story, not huge. Another road trip, exactly. Michelle, and this is really doable. Like, it's doable from where we were last year. And hopefully we will be again. Oh, it would be beautiful in the fall because you can tell they're all, there's some evergreens, but you can tell they're all like skeleton trees. And so they're waiting for their leaves to come back. But these are, these are shots, beautiful rug. This one really spoke to me. I ended up not getting it because I probably have it. But I really love it. I kind of wish I did get it. Maybe next time. There are a lot of little hooked rugs around. There's not like bargains here, but they are super pretty to see. I quite like this one too. It's very small, the central motif, but it's very colorful. I feel like the person who made this left out a lot of flowers and leaves. They were probably like, all done with that. But it seems like it's been somehow, the design has been somehow cropped or tailored, but really interesting. And this one was upstairs. I do wish I got this. It was expensive. It was like 200 and something. It is mounted, but it's not a $200 and something rug, right? It's like, honestly, it's a $60 to $80 rug. It's a commercial Garrett Blue Nose. It's beautiful, but or maybe an heirloom. I just loved it because it's in this store, and I bought another one from this stall that I'm looking at right now. Yeah, so maybe next time. And a little needlepoint or hooked stool. There were a few more rugs that were cute, Also on the main street of that town, Millerton, is this diner, like this little tin diner, like shiny metal, and it's tiny. There's like 4, maybe 3 booths in there. And it's been it looks like a diner, totally original, but it's like Mexican food. And I was able to go in, sit in a booth, and have a glass of wine and a bowl of chili. Like, to me, what's better than that? I mean, a glass of wine and a bowl of chili. You don't feel like a pig, right? Because I could have gotten like a Yankee pot roast kind of thing. I mean, maybe not a Yankee pot. I could have gotten like the burrito sampler, right, with like 6 different kinds of burritos, and I would have had to unzip my pants on the way home. And I would have loved that. Even more, to be honest, even more. But I mean, chili's great. It fills you up, and it's different every time you order. It's such a fun day out. If you're anywhere near there, there's also a bookstore right there on that little tiny main street. It's called Oblong, and it is, I think it's a 2-story bookstore, old wooden building. It looks like an old mill or something. Impossibly charming, like one of the most atmospheric bookstores I've ever been in. It's very sort of artsy, lots of notebooks and glasses and poetry, and a huge children's section, so you can bring a child or a grandchild. Really fun day out. I enjoyed it so much. It was one of those magical days that I will always remember. It was just driving was a pain. Being pulled over really got me going, but the takeaway was like, it was a magical day. It was like a lost in time, sleepy little part of New York. And it's funny to arrive at a place like the Wassaic Project and to find so many hip people inside, right? Because you kind of think like, this is a little bit Stephen King, but then you go inside and everyone is like so cool, so smart, so artsy. You feel like electric and excited and inspired. It was a great day for that. And a huge thank you to Mary Tooley Parker for the talk. And chatting with me. I didn't want to hold her up. I could have talked to her all day, but there was a lot of people there for her. So yeah, I'm going to give her some time, and I'm going to circle back because I looked in the gift store to see if there was a book or a program of her work, and there wasn't. I would so love to put together something on her work, because she has had so many different eras of hooking, and they are each so distinct and so amazing, like in and of themselves, right? It's not apples and apples, it's apples and oranges. You can't compare her to herself, because each time she starts a new thought, a new project, a new theme, it is completely different than the stuff that she's done before. She's amazing. Please look her up, and look up that video that I did, I think last summer, at the Les Sun Gallery. If you just look up on the Ribbon Candy Hooking channel, Mary Tooley Parker, Amazing, right? Amazing. Another road trip for sure. All right, I'm going to go. I've got to get some more orders out. I'm working on a couple of silly designs that I am going to put on a t-shirt because I feel like I've got to fix them. I just printed them off on the computer because they were like this big on a postage note. I feel like I keep teaching and speaking, and I never have like a ribbon candy hooking shirt on. I feel like I need to have a ribbon candy hooking shirt on because why not, right? I should have told you more about teaching on last Friday at the church because that was incredible. I'll tell you another time. You'll be so pleased. So many hookers coming to the craft, and then people asked me at church yesterday, "Oh, you're the person who taught the rug hooking class?" It's spreading like wildfire. I mean, even in just one congregation, it's spreading like wildfire. People are sending me photos of how far they've gotten in like the one day in between, and it's so exciting. People are really into it, right? Outreach. See where you can teach too. Get in touch with me if you're trying to teach and you're trying to do it inexpensively. Get in touch with me. It can be done, right? It can definitely be done. Have a great wildfire. Wildfire. Wasn't that a song about a horse, right? Wildfire. Try to think of how it went. Yeah, I would love a, tell me if you can think of another idea. I really like this idea. I gotta fix it. I don't want it to be too busy. And in theory, I could use any of my designs as a line drawing and write ribbon candy hooking. Like I could do telling the bees and write ribbon candy hooking, you know? To think about it. I want to put some up in the T Public store because everything in there right now is Halloween. So I'll work on that. Yeah. Yeah. Right. You know it. All right. I'll see everybody. We'll see when the next time is. I think we have a clear weekend coming up. Yep. We should be clear this weekend. Um, what day is today? Oh, yeah. Okay. It's the 10th. 2 dentist appointment for the kids today and then riding. All right. I will see you. I'll let you know if I can be on in the middle of the week. I'd like to come to you on Wednesday to talk about dyeing and to continue that conversation or to look at the Pearl McGowan. And we should be able to do that. So let's say, unless you hear from me, I should be sitting right here on Wednesday, and I'll put a post up for that. In the meantime, have a great day, everybody. If you need me, ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. The magpies are shipping to me, so I'll get them out to you as soon as possible. Sorry for the delay. Judy did send me the finished proof. I didn't realize it was the finished proof because normally she will write like, this is the final, and then I can use it and start whatever. I didn't realize it was the final. I'm sure that was my bad, but yeah, I didn't realize that she'd sent me the final. So they're coming sooner rather than later. And if you need me in the meantime, you know where to find me. I will hopefully see you on Wednesday. That's the